Hi, I'm Jack Draper. Shout out to QualityShot Tennis.
Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. It's another preview and prediction video, and today it's Carlos Alcaraz versus Stefanos Tsitsipas at the ATP Barcelona Open final. We're going to be breaking it down. We're going to be talking about their matches so far in the tournament, how they've looked. Then we're going to talk about their head-to-head and how they've looked in terms of matching up against each other, tactically and technically as well. And then ultimately, I'm going to tell you guys what I think is going to play out in the match and then give you guys my prediction. Look, before we get into it though, remember to that like button, do subscribe if you are new, and also do leave a rating or review if you're listening on a podcast platform. Thank you to everyone that is also a member as well on YouTube or is contributing through the podcast platforms as well. It really does help us out. Okay, let's then get into this final. So I think a lot of you will know that, Carlos Alcaraz is the favorite going into this. There's no way around that. He is definitely the favorite for sure. And that there's a reason for that. The head-to-head's 3-0 in favor of Alcaraz. And we'll talk about the previous meetings between the two shortly. But first of all, let's talk about these matches this week. So, Alcaraz, first round against Borja, straight sets. RBA, straight set victory as well. Davidovich, Fokina, straight set victory. And Evans, straight set victory. So it's been pretty plain sailing for him in Barcelona. He's looked very, very good. For Tsitsipas, he played Kachin, good win there. Shapovalov, good win as well. And same with de Minaur. A bit of a struggle against Musetti, 1 in 3 sets. Musetti, though, has been playing some good tennis. Beat Djokovic, of course, last week in Monte Carlo, although he didn't look his best, but still a good win for him there. And in terms of the scoreline, well, Tsitsipas won 6-4, 5-7, 6-3, so pretty hard fought in the end, but a good win for the Greek. So that's their results so far this week. Let's then talk about the head-to-head. So Tsitsipas and Alcaraz, well, it's pretty one-sided, as I said, 3-0 in favor of Alcaraz. And it all started with that US Open match, that really incredible match in the round of 16 against Stefanos Tsitsipas. Well, actually, the second round, I think, was of the US Open, where Alcaraz won at 1 set all it was, and he was 2 sets to 1 up. Then it was 2 sets all, then won a final set tiebreaker 7-5. Which was incredible, especially after getting bageled in the 4th set. It was a really, really big win, a 4-hour and 11-minute match on the hard courts of the US Open in 2021, and it was a real statement victory. He then beat him in Miami in straight sets last year in March, and then followed it up with a very good win on the clay in Barcelona, exactly this tournament last year, where he won in 3 sets, 6-4, 5-7, 6-2. So Tsitsipas managed to take a set off him, which he'll have a little bit of confidence from, I guess, in that sense. But this matchup isn't good for Tsitsipas. So why hasn't it been good for Tsitsipas in the past? Well, there's a few reasons. And the first one is the backhand. Now, on the quicker surfaces like US Open and Miami, even though they're slow hard courts, they're still quicker than Barcelona, being a clay court tournament. Alcaraz absolutely destroys Tsitsipas's backhand when it comes to this matchup, with the in-to-out forehand especially, and the backhand-to-backhand exchanges. We talked about, and if you watch this channel regularly, you'll know that I have in the past talked about Alcaraz's tendencies to actually have his two-handed backhand exposed against the best two-handers on tour. So your Djokovic, Sinner, even Musetti, I guess, is a one-hander, but he again is able to get some success in that exchange. Tsitsipas, though, his one-handed backhand, his backhand generally is not up there with those guys. It's nowhere near. Yes, it's improving. Yes, it can be serviceable. But when it comes to players, the elite players, the top 5 players, the players on tour who have real weapons that can attack that wing, he can struggle. It's masked a little bit on clay, which is why I think he took a set off Alcaraz, and that probably is a positive sign going into this final. And the reason why it's masked a little bit, there's 2 reasons. Number one is how quick the surface is. So Tsitsipas has a lot more time to tee up the one-handed backhand through his backswing and through the motion. He shanks a lot less on the clay because of that, and he just hits the ball a lot cleaner on that backhand side, and he feels like he's not as rushed, which makes sense. And number two, he's also being able to hit a lot more into out forehands and into in forehands. He's able to run around the backhand a lot more because, again, the surface is slower, so he's able to maneuver himself around the backhand a lot more easier than he would in the past, which is good for him, right? Because his forehand is a real weapon, and he wants to make as many forehands as possible. So if he's able to do that, then that's only a positive for him. For Alcaraz, though, what he's very good at doing is really pushing and pressing on that pressure point, and he knows Tsitsipas has a real weakness on that side. Also, physicality. Tsitsipas generally is able to stick with most people when it comes to physicality on court. Alcaraz, though, is like next level at the moment. I mean, him and Djokovic, I think, are on a level of their own at the moment. Nadal is not there, even when he's fully fit. I think he's just a level below, in all honesty. Nadal back in the day, I mean, maybe isn't rivaled by anyone else, but Alcaraz at the moment is incredible. And there's a couple of factors that play into the physicality aspect, and that's his defense if you're American, but I'll say defense, and his ability to chase down balls, his anticipation, to make his opponent play that extra ball. Tsitsipas is prone to making mistakes as the rally gets longer. His consistency of ground stroke is not really as good, I would say, as Alcaraz's. His shot tolerance is not as good as the Spaniards, generally speaking, but Alcaraz is just as attacking, if not more, than Tsitsipas, which again then raises big red flags when it comes to the matchup. The big advantage that Tsitsipas has, though, over Alcaraz is the serve. And the big issue for him is that on hard courts, and they haven't really played on any fast hard courts, so maybe it would be different. Then, maybe if it was on grass or on a quicker hard court, maybe we'd see a different result. But we haven't seen that yet. We haven't seen what it would look like. But his serve would obviously have a lot more of an effect even. Whereas on the clay in Barcelona, this year in the final and also last year and on the slow hard courts, it just doesn't have as much of an effect. And Alcaraz, one, is a natural returner, but two, he just won't be affected as much by the Tsitsipas serve unless he hits his spots consistently, hits a really high percentage of first serves. Yes, he will win some 3 points. Yes, he'll be able to sneak in behind it and volley at times as well and serve volley. But Alcaraz, for the most part, will be able to make a high percentage of returns into play. And the issue with Tsitsipas serving and volleying on the clay court is it just gives Alcaraz so much time to tee up the pass, and he's so good at being able to, one, execute the passing shot and hit his targets beautifully well when it comes to those scenarios, and two, also being able to chase down and hit ridiculous passing shots on the run, which you just wouldn't expect someone to be able to do. Then another aspect when we're talking about Alcaraz's advantage when it comes to his advantage against Tsitsipas is the drop shot. Now, Tsitsipas doesn't necessarily have a particularly good drop shot himself, and I think on the clay, he is one of the best clay quarters around Tsitsipas, but his drop shot is something that could be worked on. Alcaraz has arguably the best drop shot on tour, and a lot of people have talked about, especially I think it was Dusan Lajovic said recently when he played him on the clay in Rio, I want to say, or it might have been Buenos Aires, that every ball that comes back at you from Alcaraz is different, like different type of style or shape or pace, and it just means you're really struggling to get into a rhythm. And Tsitsipas is the type of player that needs rhythm, because when he doesn't have rhythm, that's when he starts shanking, that's when he starts missing his forehand, starts hitting the net, starts going wide, starts making a lot of errors, and Alcaraz is able to disrupt your rhythm. So I just think all in all, this just isn't a good matchup for Tsitsipas, generally speaking. It really isn't. The only positive is that, one of the other positives that you could say on the clay court, though, is Tsitsipas' return. His return is a work in progress, but on the clay, even though Alcaraz's serve is improving, it's still not elite. It's not. He has a very good kick serve, which he'll utilize a lot on the clay, especially on the ad court. He likes to use it even for a first serve out into the backhand side. And Tsitsipas, it just means he has a lot more time on the return. Alcaraz, though, what he does very well is he does like to sneak in behind the kick serve on the first or second serve at times, and he's served and volleyed really well. Now, Tsitsipas needs to, I think, keep an eye on that, and it might put a little bit of pressure on him as a returner, to be able to hit a really high quality return rather than hit, especially on the backhand side, he tends to hit like a very loopy, lobbed backhand deep into play to try and get to neutral. Alcaraz might stop him from doing that by serving and volleying, and then Tsitsipas might have to hit with a bit more purpose on that wing. So interesting to see how it all plays out. But for me, there's not really much apart from the serve that I can say Tsitsipas has a massive advantage over Alcaraz with. Alcaraz, forehand to forehand, I'm more comfortable and probably would back Alcaraz in that exchange. I think Alcaraz, yes, Tsitsipas arguably might have the more consistent forehand, you could say, over a year, over 2 years. But Alcaraz's forehand as a weapon is probably, in my opinion, more potent. He also hits better approaches. Tsitsipas can be a little bit tentative on the approach shots, especially on the forehand side, so he needs to be careful there, especially given the point we made earlier about passing shots from Alcaraz. But yeah, forehand to forehand, then backhand to backhand. I again back Alcaraz in that. Serve return dynamic, I think Alcaraz edges that as well. So I think Tsitsipas is going to have to do 3 things if he wants to beat Alcaraz. 1, he needs to serve really well, hit his spots, and hit a high percentage of first serve. 2, and he does this generally speaking, but I think he needs to execute it really well. He needs to make a lot of forehands on the 1+ play after the serve, and it needs to be aggressive and really accurate. And he needs to put Alcaraz on the back foot straight away. If he holds pretty comfortably, he will get chances on the Alcaraz serve. Number 3 is trying to avoid giving Alcaraz a lot of opportunities to drop shot at will, and also come to the net at will and just control points generally. He needs to be the one taking the onus, taking the initiative, Tsitsipas. And one thing that he does do really well is hit a really good forehand cross court that drags opponents out. And he's able to hit with a lot of topspin on the ball, especially on that forehand side. He needs to be aggressive. He might make mistakes, and he will make mistakes inevitably, but there's no point going out by playing any type of passive tennis against Alcaraz. I think he needs to be aggressive. He does have weapons. He just needs to make the most out of them and then hope that Alcaraz is not able to combat it in a really efficient way, and it might take him time to adapt. And also, he may struggle, Alcaraz, on the back foot to be on the back foot throughout the majority of the match, and he might get frustrated. So if I'm Tsitsipas, that's what I'm doing. I'm trying to be really, really proactive in this matchup. I'm going to, yes, he wants to try and avoid having to hit a lot of backhand as well. Of course, that's a given. And that does mean being able to dictate in the points a lot. And if he does need to hit a backhand, I think he needs to be aggressive on that side. He does need to be aggressive. There's no point hitting a lot of lob backhands. Alcaraz will pounce on it. And there's just no point in playing really, really passive tennis against Alcaraz on a clay court at the moment, because Alcaraz is just playing really, really well form-wise. So that's my opinion anyway. I'm going to go Alcaraz, though, I'm going to go straight sets. Even though last year was in 3, I just have a feeling that this matchup is not necessarily going to get any better for Tsitsipas on clay or any slow hard courts. I do want to see it on a faster court because, say, Australia. I know Tsitsipas has such a good record at the Australian Open. He made the final this year. He's made multiple semi-finals in previous years. I would like to see that, for example, even at Wimbledon, to see how that would play out. But I just don't see Tsitsipas's weapons being enough against Alcaraz on clay, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts. So, do you think Tsitsipas can do it? Maybe I'm downplaying his chances, but the head-to-head, the way the two styles match up, just for me, it's just not a good mix for Steph. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Thank you very much, guys. Stay safe and well, and we'll see you in the next video.